Get really, really comfortable. Settle in, because I'm going to be talking about two things in this podcast. I'm going to be discussing things that may be a little bit interlinked with each other, which is why I probably thought of them at the same time. My fears and the vacations that I had. Two things in one. I'm not going to change the picture. I'm not going to edit this. It is what it will be. So I'm going to discuss it on this podcast and how these things happened over time. But first, I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, my series that I made very, very recently on the Amendment. If you haven't seen that, you may find it interesting. If you're interested in me in this podcast, you may find it. I mean, if you're watching this, then you may very well enjoy that series because I really put a lot into it. Well, I put a lot into creating the Oracle deck that goes along with it, and hopefully someday will be published. And I'll find an artist and create the cards and do whatever. But I didn't think that anyone would watch this. I just kind of did it for myself, and then I saw this comment from this person who was saying how good that one of the episodes was, and I was very, very surprised. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, and I explained it in a lot of depth and a lot of detail, the whole, philosophy behind it, the whole, all the aspects of it. So something I created as a kid, it makes it legitimate. I, talk about it in a way that you can understand, in a grounded way with the clarity and knowledge that I have now, which I would not be able to do if I was little, I can tell you that. So if you're interested, then you can check out that series of videos. They are long, but I think that'll go by very, very fast. Like, my videos, in my opinion, are very, very long. They can be long, but they do fly by when you watch them. There's just something about them that just goes by. Anyway, the next thing that I want to say. Yesterday I did a series of live streams. I did one, I didn't know if it was public or not. I did another, and then it just cut off, and then I did another one. Plus the one about channel announcements, which I don't need to go through. But these 3 live streams that I did, 3 out of the 4 live streams were about me experiencing a dust storm yesterday. If you're watching this on the day that this is getting published, which is March 5th, 2026. Yesterday, I was experiencing a very, very intense dust storm in my mind, a very, very intense voice. If you haven't checked out the voices in my head that were in my life episode, then it is a personal one. It is kind of a vulnerable one, but I do not want to keep it secret. I do not want to keep this thing secret. I want to let it out. I want others to know about it. I'm sick of keeping it in my head and being ashamed of it and feeling lonely about it, because I've been feeling very, very lonely about it, about having it. And yeah, I was experiencing this voice in my head with this cadence and this, repetitive string of curse words. And I wanted to say that it started at work the other day. When I immediately got there, it started. I expected it to. It came. I couldn't focus. I actually told the job coach about the voice yesterday, which I did not say in those live streams because I couldn't think clearly to say this. So it started. So I'm telling you this now. It started, when I was there. And I told the job coach about it, and then we had a conversation about it, but it was still there. It was still bothering me. And then I went home, recorded a video, still there. I was trying to get it out, and then just lasted until the evening. And I made a promise to myself not to give in and go to bed by this voice. If this intrigues you, you're going to want to check out this episode. And it made me want to go to bed And then I just decided, well, I'll just do a live stream and talk about it in a weird way that I will not apologize for, but it was weird. It was, like, what am I watching kind of thing, but it was authentic. Kind of think of it as a separate add-on to the Real Me podcast. I was experiencing this dust storm. It was very, very intense. And then by the time I ended the channel announcements live stream, it just went away. And then I could produce a beautiful song about it. And I got a really nice comment for that song about a dust storm, which I think, if you checked out that podcast episode, then I think that you'll like the song that goes along with it. It's called The Dust Storm, which is about this voice in my head. So anyway, I explain the metaphor of the dust storm and the dust bowl in that video. So if you want to go watch that, then you can. All right. Getting into this podcast, let's talk about my fears first of all, because this is probably the shorter section, and how they developed over time. Let's start at the very, very beginning. 2007 was the year that my family moved from New Jersey, because that's where I was born. I was just 3 at the time. And I moved to Indianola. Short answer is, I moved into a rental house. This is a personal episode, so I'm telling you, if you want to hear about my personal life in details only, then you're in the right place. If you don't, and if you want real meaning and insight, then this is where you can click off if you want to. That's what I'm going to say about this. So, yeah, I feel like I'm going to say that in a lot of these episodes, so I'll try to not do that so much. But so anyway, you're clicking on this. The title is very, very clear, and I shouldn't have to explain that. So you're clicking on this video for a reason, because you wanted to watch it, and etc. So, rental house, moved into the current house that I have now. That's what happened in 2007. We didn't have a car. We walked around in cities and stuff like that. So 2007, the very, very first fear that came up. I mean, I don't remember when this fear actually came up. This is just a rough, this is just, okay. This is just a rough, not specific, not pinned down. Some of these are not pinned down because it happened so early, but these fears came about in my life. So I've talked about other personal stuff in other podcasts. I see no reason why I shouldn't bring up this. So 2007, the very, very first fear, let's just say that it happened this year. Automatic flush toilets. That was huge. That was very, very, very huge in my life for a long time. Because the very first time that I remember this fear was when I was going to Culver's one day. And I was going into the restroom and I flushed the toilet. My mom was in there and she said something along the lines of, "It's very loud," or, "It is going to be loud." I don't remember what she said, but kind of a frustrated way. And I heard the flush and it was very, very loud. It was very, very loud. I couldn't handle how loud the flush was. It was like, it startled me. Like, it was, all of a sudden, it's like when you flush the toilet, loud flushes, scared me too. But with automatic flush toilets, when there's the the light that blinks, you don't know when the toilet is gonna flush until you move away from it, because that's what happens. Of course, I don't fear it now. I've completely gotten over the fear. But at the time, it was really, really huge. So the automatic flush toilets, well, what else can I say about this? The flush was loud, the flush scared the living daylights out of me, that's the basic part of it. I noticed the fear again when I was in San Antonio, Texas, when I was very, very young, in the restroom, um, with the automatic flush toilets, making a loud sounds. So throughout my whole, you know, kind of a lot of growing up, there was this fear around this. And then the other memory I have that I can think of right now, doing this podcast, is being, on vacation in 2015 in a restroom, and I was afraid of the automatic flush toilets. And I was trying to um, stop people from coming in because wanted control, and I wanted it to be fear, feeling a lot of fear. I didn't want others to come in. I was very, very defensive, and obviously very, very frightened, very, very uncomfortable. So that was one fear that I had, was automatic flush toilets, which is something so small, but it was something that's very, very huge, because one of the things is I was startled by loud, sudden noises, just like fire alarms going off. I guess that was another fear, where I feared fire alarms going off because of the loud sound and the startling thing. And growing up in school, that was another loud sound. So in general, these loud sounds that were very, very startling, that scared the living daylights out of me, put me in a state of fear. Going along with that with hand dryers, I would say, I'm guessing at this, I don't remember, 2009 hand dryers, when I was, 5, hand dryers came about. Again, same fear, loud, sudden noises. Other people would use them. I would not expect when they would use them. Okay, 2011. There's a bit of a story with this, the fear of fire. How did this come about? I was seeing my family, my favorite aunt in the world. I was seeing her, and her, my uncle, I'm debating if I should name them or not. I'm debating. Yeah, I'm not gonna name them, actually, in this podcast. But she was my favorite aunt. Very, very interested in books. Very talkative. Very very much a Leo Sun, Sagittarius Moon, Sagittarius North Node. Very much very energetic. Had a laugh that you could hear for miles, lit up the room, was the life of the party from my perception of it. Yeah, a great, great aunt that I remember all my childhood. This was the very, very first time I was actually coming to her house. And, I will tell you that when we entered the door, it was like, I perceived it was kind of mad to begin with, very, very superficially, but then just kind of went away. And then, of course, she wasn't mad at all. I just had a small perception of it. But anyway, the vacation was, we sat down, we, were in the backyard, we ate, I remember, barbecue, potato chips, and did all that kind of thing, sat down in the living room, talked, and then she announced that we were going to this restaurant, which I don't remember what she said about the restaurant, but I do remember what happened. And she said, we're going to our favorite ice cream place, which, was right after the restaurant. So when we got to the restaurant, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. It was a hibachi restaurant. It had a very, very long table. And it was like this, it had this metal table that was inside of it. Like, okay, so you're picturing the table, and the restaurant looked like the Fairway in town that I remember. The table was like a table, and you're picturing a dip in the table that is metal, like, like a hole that was like very, very long and lengthy, and it was a huge, huge rectangular table. Then there was a chef that came, and he started preparing food. Put some oil on the grill, put some, if you're not familiar with hibachi restaurant, they kind of cook it in front of you, like it's a Japanese thing. So they put, oil on the grill. They put all these things on the grill. They put food on the grill. Then, all of a sudden, I was sitting right in front of it. I noticed other people at the other end of the table sitting far away from it. I was like, I wish I was them because I don't have to deal with this. I suddenly saw fire that just was right in front of my face. And it was so sudden. It was so unexpected. It just scared me. Scared me. And throughout this whole experience, I was like anticipating and afraid of when the next fire would happen. I curled, underneath, my mom, in her, kind of putting my head down, getting close to her, trying to, avoid the fear. And I wrote a whole personal narrative about this in 7th grade about this whole experience. So, um, and how it was a bad idea because I couldn't think of a bad idea. Of course, I have a great bad idea now, which was the deleting videos, which I wouldn't have had at the time, but I could write that thing very, very well now because I had the bad idea of, deleting videos and channel surfing. That was a bad idea. And so, also a bad idea was going on my scooter and falling on my teeth. It was another bad idea. So I could write about all these bad ideas now. But so anyway, another small fear that I had was storms. Like when I saw a storm in a video, like the storm, children, I was very, very scared of that. Did kind of the same thing with that. But anyway, this thing lasted, for a while. And then after one fire and then another, one time expected it to not come, and then it came again. The chef said, "No more fire." And I was like, I felt relief. I felt so much relief. I didn't have to deal with the fire anymore of this one experience. I didn't have to deal with this fire that was so sudden in my face. So I went outside very, very early. I kind of had my eyes closed, kind of, afraid of it. The ice cream place was a better experience, but that started that whole fear of fire. That's what I remember. Another really, really huge fear. 2013, going underwater. I still fear this today. I still fear today. I have not gotten over this fear since then. I started noticing. I want to go into the story of this. I was taking swimming lessons. And basically, when I was taking swimming lessons, they were not the most gentle. Like when it comes to putting somebody underwater and training them to swim and do underwater, you have to do it in a very gentle, gradual way where you're very, very sensitive to them, you're very, very considerate of them, easing themselves into it instead of, just forcing them into it. Well, they forced me into doing a lot of stuff it was very, very sudden, I was very, very uncomfortable with. And I was like the black sheep in the odd one out of everybody else because everybody else was just fine with it. How come everybody else was just fine with getting forced into doing all this stuff, all this, foreign, uncomfortable, sudden stuff, and I was, the one that couldn't do this. Like I was the one who was afraid of this, so I felt like the odd one out in that kind of way. And so they pushed me way too hard. They were not considerate of my fears and my, anxieties and, whatever. And so, what happened was, how this came about was, the very, very first day, we were swimming, and then the associate, one of the associates of the swim um, clan, I guess you could say, counted down from 1, 2, 3, and there was one time where she did it, was I just suddenly went underwater, and it was the most shocking, most scary experience. I couldn't breathe. I could, I got it in my nose, and it just scared the living daylights out of me. And then she said, "Well, we're going to write a nice letter or a nice ticket because you did so well." And I was thinking, well, thanks. But that was a scary experience. You didn't consider how scary it was. I don't feel so relieved and so accomplished at that. I feel scared. Like, I didn't feel accomplished by doing that. I felt very, very scared because of that. And that was how the whole experience happened. And then it kept happening over the kind of experience of that. And then, another very, very scary thing is, and I was 9 at the time. This was summer of 2013. They were all 9. And then guess what happened? In the deepest end of the pool, they made us jump off the diving board. In the deepest end of the pool. And I'm like, why would you do that for kids our age? Why would you do that for me at all? And I remember this whole experience, saying, really, really foreign words that didn't make any sense, trying to, keep, myself above water. And I was, just the lesson was to relax, just to relax, to not let I was still afraid of going underwater, but to not let the, because you had to relax when you're, swimming in the water, because otherwise you would sink and, drown and, whatever. And I went off the diving board. I jumped off. And I have thoughts in my head. I may forget to get them all out. I don't know. But I jumped off the diving board with somebody else holding me, and then I was in the deepest water. Went underwater for like 2 minutes, and got up. That was very, very scary, incredibly scary. And and like one of the times was like there was a threat. Like, if you do not do this, if you are not willing to do this, you will be dunked. Like this person will dunk you. Can you believe that? Can you believe that they would make that threat? That they would even push me to go underwater and push me to go off the diving board that young of age? Can you just believe the audacity of them doing that and threatening that they will dunk me if I don't do what they're saying? Like, that is just wrong. That is just flat out wrong. And so the thing is, I was brainwashed by them, because I actually remember saying, "Let's go off the diving board. I want to go off the diving board." I was brainwashed. I was so, it was so weird. Like, I wanted to go off the diving board, even though I was afraid to. Like, I was willing to, because I was brainwashed into thinking that it was just okay, and that I wasn't afraid of it when I really was. To top it all off, one day my grandma was there. She had to sit way in the other end of the pool, because she couldn't be so close, and she had a hard time seeing me. But then the very, very last day was Parents' Day, where parents came and observed you, at the pool. Parents came and observed you at the pool. Just to review what you have done, kind of thing, to see what you have done. And my dad was getting close, and he said, "Come on, do this. Come on, get in this in this shower thing that's gonna pour water over your head. Come on, you can do it. Why can't you do it? Come on, don't be afraid. Come on, don't be a wimp." I perceived him saying, he was not understanding how afraid I was and how uncomfortable I was, and at the time, I didn't communicate, like, I didn't have the words, I wasn't assertive and wasn't communicating how frightening the experience was and how problematic the experience was. With, going underwater and my fear for that. And I was standing there in fear, and my dad was so not empathetic and so not understanding of my fear of this, and he was just kind of, egging me on to do all these things from observing me that he thought that I would not be afraid to do, but I was afraid. And so that was very, very negative, and so that ended that year. And so that started the whole fear throughout my whole experience. I was afraid of that. What I remember was going to Wisconsin Dells back in 2018, and then going on a slide, like a water slide. I was afraid of water slides, and the slide was going really, really fast. Like, I was going at very, very high speed. I was sitting with my mom or my dad, and then I ended up going underwater. It was very, it's scary kind of talking about this. I'm picturing scary music doing this. But anyway, it was, really scary because I went underwater and, I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to, drown and die, because of being underwater. I got up, and then I was just sick out of this whole vacation, just physically ill. And that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, because my intuition told me, do not go in this pool, do not, swim in this thing, because this, and my intuition was right. It did not feel right. What the whole going into this swimming, and I went the previous year to 2017, and it was a way better experience. Going in this pool, in this in the Wisconsin Dells swimming pool. In 2018, I'm trying to get my thoughts together here. It didn't feel right. Like, I was so constipated. I was just so, like, my stomach was like hurting. My stomach was like anxious, nervous, uncomfortable, and like every part of my body was like, do not do this, do not go in this pool. But I wanted to anyway. For some reason, I pushed it on because a small part of me wanted to, even though my body and intuition was saying no, 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 no. And there's just something about the pool that scares me. Like when I enter the pool, the smell of chlorine scares me. Like, it's a smell that I get. Just anxiety fills me every time I smell that. When I get near a pool, just like the anxiety, like it's the smell that gives me anxiety. Not the sight of the pool, but the smell of it, because of going underwater. And so, my intuition was right. I shouldn't have done that, and I regretted it because I went underwater, and it was a horrible experience, and I got probably even more sick because of it. So yeah, do not go against your intuition. Trust your intuition. When you get a bad vibe, trust it, and don't go in that direction. Your intuition is your inner compass, and I'm doing this during Mercury retrograde in Pisces and Pisces season. I have not done this during Pisces season, but maybe I will consider strengthening, your intuition. Like, it's a good time to strengthen your intuition in general. Strengthen, your intuition. Like, really, really become strong in your intuition when it comes to, what feels right and what feels wrong. Okay. So then, the next fear that came about was in 2014, and I didn't notice it on the plane ride when we went to Boston, but I noticed it on the way back. It was very, very difficult. It was very tough. I went on the way back. from Boston. And it was like, prepared for, chewing, because, because when you're on a plane, you, you have to chew a lot of things because of, the altitude and getting your ears, like chewing gum and all those kind of things like that. 2014, what I remember is going on a plane and I clipped my ears. One time, nothing happened. The second time, nothing happened. The third time, nothing happened. The fourth time, I heard a pop in my ear. Like, it was a really, really uncomfortable pop. I still fear this today. I still fear. I haven't gone on a plane since then, and I still fear it. So, going in the mountains and all those things, like any altitude change would affect my ears. Like, I have a fear of that. I still have this anxiety now that I'm feeling better than ever. I probably do have that fear still. I was feeling so depressed that that fear, wouldn't have bothered me probably as much, but I would have noticed it. Like this scares me. This makes me very, very uncomfortable. This fear came about with yeah, I'm probably gonna have to make yeah, I'm gonna probably do this in just one whole, podcast. This is gonna be a long one and I'm already feeling kind of exhausted, but I want to get through this. So, the fear of altitude changes. I mean, the fear of popping, I was, itching my head, I was leaning down, I was, very, very uncomfortable with that. The one, I remember one of the flight attendants came and like, "Are you sick?" And then she gave tips like, try putting your hand to your nose and try puffing in your nose or whatever. And I was like, that doesn't work, and that's not going to be very good, and I'm afraid of doing that. So then I was afraid of, going into my the trip next year to Michigan. I was afraid because I went to in the kind of the mountains, and I noticed the altitude changes. Then my mom kind of hinted at that, and then on the way back, I felt it immediately, and then it went away. So yeah, it was a very, very big fear in my life, and that was that. Okay. The next fear, this was also a really, really big fear. 2015, another fear was introduced. Another very scary fear. And this was the fear of bugs, the fear of bees, the fear of wasps. Before this point, didn't bother me at all. I got stung by a bee when I was little, and I was unaffected by it. I wasn't afraid. I was just very calm, very, very chill about it, very put together about it. But all of a sudden, in the summer of 2015, when I heard a buzz in my ear, it was this is the thing, sudden things. Like, I think all of these fears that have most of these fears wrap around it, things being very, very sudden, things being very, very unexpected. Sudden noises, sudden things, sudden sensations, like sudden things that I didn't expect. This is the whole, maybe it's common for everybody, but it's the whole kind of wraparound of these fears. That's what they all kind of have in common. So this fear came about. It was a sudden noise, it was a scary noise because the frequency of the sound of the fly, and how it got quiet and then how it got loud and how it, just a buzzing sound. I can't describe it. A buzzing sound in my ear, like directly in my ear, and it was unexpected, happened. And then I didn't know when the next buzz was going to happen. Because I went outside and I was constantly in fear and constantly on eggshells and constantly anxious and anticipating and holding my breath tight and tense about when this next buzz would happen. When this next buzz in my ear would happen. And to go along with that, I was afraid of bees. Like, I was afraid of the sight of flies. I was afraid of the sight of bees, the sight of wasps. I was afraid of the sight of the sound of their buzzing and the sting of bees. Because, what happened was I was in Indianola Child Care ICC when I was little, and I was standing right next to a hole with wasps, and I remember my hand was out, and then I saw a black wasp flying right by it, and then all of a sudden it hit me, and then I just, erupted in, fear, or not fear, but just it hurt so bad, and I went to the nurse's office, because of that. So we went on our vacation in 2015 to Michigan. And I distinctly remember the one day when we went to see the dunes, like the sand dunes. And what I remember is the leader, like the tour guide of this whole thing. I told her about my fear of bees and wasps to protect me from bees and all these kind of things from buzzing in my ear. She was like, "Oh, I have a big responsibility." That's what I remember her saying very, very clearly. And then I was like, well, yeah, you kind of do. Well, now I feel sorry for you now, but now that you say that, but I mean, it was scary because the whole time I was holding on to my mom, I was not just relaxing and not just being loose, not just being, and I was very, very tense, like the whole time, and the whole vacation, I was very, very tense. When it comes to I'm gonna have to surrender to the fact that this is gonna be long, so I'm just gonna make myself really, really comfortable. Okay. This is gonna be long. This is gonna be a lot. Okay. So I was holding on to my mom. I was afraid of the wasps or the bees, but mainly the flies. Like I was afraid of flies even during this whole thing. And I remember holding on to my mom and not, being just loose and relaxed. Another way that this fear came out is I was 2016, September. This was the fear of September because in September, there's not a lot of flowers. All the pollination, all the flowers die out, and then the bees become desperate because there's not a whole lot to pollinate on, and they become very, very attracted to sugar. So I had a can of root beer that I was drinking out in the backyard. Then all of a sudden, I was sitting, just relaxing, just enjoying the day, drinking my root beer, and then this bee came up. And I don't think that I heard it. Maybe I did hear a buzz, and then my mom gave attention to it. It was a bee, and then she moved away from it. We moved away from it. Then I was in fear of the bee because of that one experience. And then I had a purple. This is going to sound really, really weird, and I think it is really, really weird. A purple vest on, which apparently is the color that attracts bees, standing in a neighbor's yard talking to them in like 2018. And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear it, but I felt a sharp pain in the back of my neck. Like a sharp pain. And it was a bee sting. It was a bee sting. And then I was shouting, I was, reacting and doing all the stuff. And, I felt that, very, very strongly, with the bee sting. And then, trying to think of the next time that this happened. There was something else I remember in 2020 when I was on my scooter. I didn't expect the bee to come, but it came and it stung me, and I kind of reacted the same way. Then in 2021, apparently because my house, there's a door to the sunroom of my house, and then there's like a stairway. Like there's not a porch, there's just a stairway. And you walk out the stairway and you go down the stairs. And so apparently that area had nests of wasps and bees in it, and there was wasps and bees flying around there, and I was afraid to go out there because I was afraid of seeing it. I was afraid of the sound of it. I was afraid of getting stung, like, seeing one on the door and then being afraid of, opening the door, and then, my mom was coming in one time and I was afraid of her letting in a wasp then, and so she slammed the door and was really, really mad at me. But I wasn't doing this to annoy her or to push her buttons. I was doing this because I was genuinely afraid in 2021 that I would get stung by this bee and by this wasp that would be flying around. So that was, very, very scary. Kind of the same thing continued in 2022, but anyway, so that was that fear. And I don't feel fear flies and, buzzy flies anymore, but I still fear bees and wasps very, very strongly. Okay, 2017, Monday, April 3rd, 2017. Totally unexpected. That morning, I was experiencing kind of cramps in my stomach, kind of like the feeling I needed to go to the restroom. I sat through my classes the whole entire day. Okay. I'm going to be very, very specific in this fear. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to give away an unpleasant detail, but it's the truth of what happened. So it's going to be unpleasant, but this is what happened, and I want to be real and raw about it. So I hope that you're not eating watching this, because this is going to ruin your appetite. I don't want you to hear this when you're eating. Okay? This is the truth. I want to paint the real picture, the very, very disgusting picture, but the true picture of what happened. So I was sitting in classes. It was fine. I was in, phys ed PE class, and at the very, very end of it, I felt a wet sensation in my underwear. And I felt like, wow, something is so wrong here. And I was worried about it. Sure enough, when I got in the locker room and I opened up my, underwear, well, it was completely soiled. Completely filled with you-know-what. Completely just very, very filled with you-know-what. And so, what happened was, I didn't have any spare pair of underwear to change into, and I cried. I broke down and cried when I was putting things away in my locker. And I went to lunch with the total awareness of what happened. And then went to get my things in the locker, told one of the teachers, I can't continue on today because this happened. Like, I'm telling you right now, if this happens again at DMAC or anywhere, full stop. Full stop. I'm stopping the whole entire thing. I don't care if I am in a restaurant in Italy. I don't care if I'm in a presentation, doing, like, in a meeting. I don't care if I'm like this case, I was in school. I don't care where I am in public. If this happens in public, I am stopping the whole thing. I am going home because it is not worth continuing to do this with the fear and with the uncomfortable anxiety and uncomfortable awareness that this happened. Like I'm telling you, if this should happen, the whole thing that I'm doing flies out the window, and I go home and I deal with this. I mean, that is what will happen if this should ever happen. A guarantee. A guarantee. Listening to me as my older self who's like, well, that's not how life works. No, that will be how life works. So that older self watching this, no. I'm telling you right now, older self. This is what will happen. Okay? So, with certainty, because I can't go through this with this, fear and, uncomfortable anxiety. And so I changed my, underwear and everything when I got home, and that was what started the fear. So I became very, very anxious about how clean I was in my, room in the whole 2017 fear. Going to Memorial Day, the fear was there. Going on vacation, the fear was there. Where I was worried that I felt these wet sensations and these things, but there was actually nothing there. I was worried that the sensation was the real thing because I felt a sensation was actually a real thing. That's how this fear all got started. It's not just something that happens randomly. It's something that triggers the fear. It's something that starts the fear. So this is what started that fear. Now, this worsened with OCD. I do not want to go into all the stories with OCD, but the OCD happened, made the fear more intense. I discussed that in the progress that in Virgo video. So if you want to hear the full details of that, you can hear that video. I'm not going to go into that here because it's too long and too exhausting. The final fear that is very, very most recent is this is based off of deleting videos, deleting YouTube channels. I have a fear of things getting deleted. I have a fear of valuable things getting deleted. Like my worst fear is seeing myself go to my channel, click the settings, and delete my channel without thinking of it. Just very, very impulsively deleting things, doing it against my better judgment. This is, I mean, I fear this. I'm telling you, it is haunting me in my life because I have lost so many precious videos in my life. And I put so much time and so much energy and so much hard work into doing the videos. I cannot afford to lose it. I cannot afford for it to be hacked, for it to be deleted, for there to be a report on my channel, for it to be taken down. I cannot afford for that to happen. Otherwise, I will just fall into depression. I will just fall into despair. I will fall into devastation. I would be so... It's hard to talk about. It's hard to even think about. I can't even... the thought of it just scares me. It scares the living daylights out of me. You're thinking, well, not a big deal. It's a YouTube channel. Well, it is a big deal because YouTube is a really, really huge value for me in my life. Watching the content and making the videos. There's a lot that is encompassed with YouTube. And I just fear, I fear channels getting deleted, and I fear AI coming in and replacing the content, but I also fear deleting my channel. I just fear deleting precious videos. I cannot even dream of doing this. Because this would totally ruin my life, and then I would just be what's the point anymore of making any videos? If this should happen, what is the point of making videos anymore? What's the point of going to all this work and putting in all this time and energy to making videos if they're going to be deleted? What is the point? And then my whole interest and enjoyment in making videos will go out the window. I will just fall into despair. I will fall into depression. It is this serious because of all the past experiences that I have experienced that I've made so huge in my mind. It's not just a one-time thing. It happened multiple times in my life where I compulsively deleted things. So this fear is also really, really huge. Switching gears now to my vacations that I had. Some of these are interlinked. The very, very first vacation that I had was in 2008, which I barely remember, which was when the South Node was in Leo. Which the South Node in Leo in 2008, very much about, egoic, not becoming so prideful, not becoming so self-conscious. I remember going on a lot of trains in that year, 2010. 2010, I went to Chicago with my parents were going to Chicago, and my grandparents are going to Chicago. And we went to the aquarium, with all these kind of things. And I want to mention, one of the things I remember is I was in a stroller on this trip. And I remember going around just store after store and saying, no, I don't like this store. Going to another store that was different. No, I don't like the store. Okay, becoming very, very particular about the store. And going on this trip. And, my grandparents were there. They had to fly in because they were in Missouri. So, and my grandpa was very, very tough on my grandpa because that was the year that, his nodal return. My grandpa had the North Node in Capricorn, which is about like putting yourself out into the world and not being so tied to family, not being drained by family. Like, I want to read about this placement because I just realized how fascinating. I have Jan Spiller's book. I have yet to read about this placement, so I'm going to read about that. I read most of the North Node placements, but I want to learn more about that placement because this was his placement. And he had an argument with his family about painting because he was a painter. He painted art. He painted he was a painter. He taught painting at Northwest Missouri State in Maryville for the longest time. So he had an argument with his family because you wouldn't make a whole lot of money doing this, but this was the family pulling him down when it comes to I may tell the story again when I do the North Node and Capricorn podcast episode. Way later in the future, it was pulling him down from him not being his authentic self and from not putting himself out there with his ambitions and what he wanted to do in the world. So of course he got over that and he became a painter and he became very, very successful and he followed his North Node. Well done. And so anyway, he was there, he became very, very depressed. The trip was very, very hard on him. He was 74 at the time. 74 years old at the time. And I was 6. I was 6 years old. Just got out of kindergarten. Okay. 2011, oh my gosh. Do I really have to go in depth about this? Because I already kind of talked about this. I remember going to see family. I remember going to see family in 2011. I remember going to my Aunt John's, one of Aunt Nan and Scott's house with a couple of my cousins were there. We had a good time playing in the backyard and went to dinner. I think there was something with, getting, drinking a lot of alcohol and playing games or whatever that, there was a dog there. And so there was an organ there. I became very, very, very obsessed about the organ. Like, the whole thing with me was, music was very, very huge. Like, I became fascinated with organs and pianos, and another fascination that I had was elevators. Like, I was fascinated with elevators when I was very, very young. And I watched this guy on YouTube, Diesel Ducey, which you can check out his channel, made videos way back when. It was one of the first ones on YouTube. I watched his videos, and it was the weirdest thing. Like, why was I watching this weird guy's videos about elevators when I was little? I was just fascinated with elevators and the idea of elevators and going on elevators. And I was also fascinated with, like, opening and closing doors. It was just so weird. So weird. But that was what I was fascinated with, and I was watching this guy on YouTube, which I don't follow now. I have zero interest in his content, but, it was the way it was when I was little. That was one of the first, introductions to YouTube, one of the first exposures. I didn't think much of YouTube at the time. Of course, it is a huge part of my life now because I have my channel and I watch things off of it, and I have YouTube Premium, and I, have there's movies off of it. It's huge for me now. It is huge for me now, but it was not that way back then. But so seeing a family, and yeah, I remember talking to my Aunt Joan on the phone, which I saw her on this trip. And then in the car to this restaurant, which I described earlier, she was talking about, will I talk to you on the phone? I'm not going to go into the whole details of this. I covered this before, so I'm going to move on. Okay, the next vacation, 2012, Colorado. My family and I went to Colorado. When we went there, I remember watching Mary Poppins. Okay, so Mary Poppins in 2012, The Sound of Music 2013. That's what I was into. And I think chronologically, Julie Andrews played in Mary Poppins first, and then The Sound of Music second. So it just made perfect sense. But 2013 was the year of my introduction to music and The Sound of Music, and getting interested in music and the idea, the romantic musical thing of music. That was that year. That was kind of one of the themes of that year. But Colorado, I remember traveling west. It was kind of like I was getting familiar with going west, like Pile West, I called it, with like this kind of railing. It was very, very huge along the highway. Going to Colorado, I remember camping. I remember it being very, very cold at night, being very just, it was very, very cold. We camped. We went to see the mountains. We went up there's a lot of details that I don't want to go into with that. My family and I, just because I was an only child, I didn't have any siblings, just me, my mom, my dad, and I went to Colorado. We also went to this breakfast place, which I walked into, and the waitress said, "Are you coming in to just eat?" Or no, my mom said, "We're just coming in to look." But I wanted to go there, and it had like pancakes and something really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. We went to an Italian restaurant that evening as well. And the food was very, very good, and that was a little treat that we celebrated with ourselves then. So that was Colorado. 2013 was Kentucky. We went to Kentucky. And there's several stories with this that I want to go into. The very, very first thing with this is that I was sick. This was the only summer in my whole entire life where I was sick. I had a cough. I was stuffed up. I had all these things. And I took medicine in the car to Kentucky. We went to a cabin. We rented out a cabin. I filmed a tour of the cabin. I think I have it on my channel. I filmed multiple videos. I remember playing around with the different lightings with cameras and getting into that, pretending that it was, pretending that I was in a movie, talking in a foreign language. I think that happened in Colorado as well. And so getting in a cabin, we went to see the caves in Kentucky. We went to do all these things. Some of the stuff I don't want to go into. What's the other thing I was going to say about this? That was the year when the North Node was in Scorpio. The South Node was in Taurus. Okay, I was sick. There was something else that I wanted to say about this that I just slept. What else did I want to say about this? I was sick, and also, I remember now. I remember now. So, I was sick this trip. I remember going to like this jumpy place where you would, jump around. Jump around on a thing, and then my stomach felt very, very, very uneasy and all of that. So I was sick on this trip. I remember going, one of the things I remember, I was sitting in this restaurant, and then all of a sudden I was talking, and then I just started coughing. Just started uncontrollably coughing. And I remember it being so severe that there were people, like my mom saying, "Can I get help over here?" And there were people saying, you'll, like strangers saying, "You'll be okay, whatever." And I just remember coughing, and I couldn't stop coughing, and I just couldn't get out of it, and it was very, very scary with that. And the other thing that I want to talk about with this is, on the way back we stopped at, I think, which was like Mark Twain's city, like the city of Mark Twain in southern Missouri. And I think there's a video of this. I have to let me search it on YouTube just to see if there's a video of this. Oh yes, there is a video. Okay, it's on my channel. So if you go on my channel and you put in most annoying music I've heard when unexpected, you will find a video that come up of me, and it will show exactly this. And this is not copyright, because this is my video. I want to play this for you. I want to play exactly what it sounded like for you, so that you can hear exactly what I'm talking about. Like I want to make this a real, authentic podcast for you to listen to. So this is what it sounded like. So it was basically, I was going up to this ferry. And then all of a sudden I was going up, and I heard this beautiful music playing. And I couldn't appreciate the beautiful music because I was annoyed at it, like I was expected by it. Like I didn't all of a sudden I was going up to the ferry, and then this music just started. And you're gonna hear it. This music just started. It was unexpected music. And I was annoyed at it. Like, how can you get this thing to stop? And it was loud, and it was not like hurting my ears or anything, but it was just annoying. It was annoying, and I was annoyed, irritated by this. And then I remember being annoyed by it later, and then running, by the gate or whatever, by a gate, and then my mom saying, I don't want the police to catch you or whatever. And I was like, why would the police catch me? But anyway, here's the sound of the music that I heard. I'm going to turn the volume up so that you can hear it. Can you hear it?
Oh, it's from the ferry boat.
It's from the ferry boat.
Nice music, everyone.
Kind of an embarrassing video, sorry.
Just let it go.
Honestly, I have to laugh at this.
Is it
Like, okay. Just the way I reacted was just so funny. Like it was kind of annoying. Like, I actually heard it and I thought, like, wow, this is annoying. Like, like it was. I think you could hear how annoying it was. It will not be copyright because this is my own video. My own video. So do not give me a copyright strike under this video, YouTube. So anyway, that was that. vacation. I want to move on to the next vacation. Boston 2014. Already covered some of this in the fear part of this podcast, but basically, this was the trip that I really, really remember. This is the trip that I, really, really strongly remember in my life. This was a highlight of my life growing up. So we went to Boston. We went on a plane. My family and I had a rental car that we, rented out. Got to a hotel. It had like a kitchen and it had like a, bedrooms and other rooms. It was a really, really nice hotel. The view wasn't very good, but we went to this hotel. We did that. We went on the train, like an underground train, to the city. Just around. I don't really have to go through every single detail of this. And then, but the highlight of it, I want just this is getting long. I want to focus on the highlight of it because I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired. The highlight of this was going to an Italian deli. Going to an Italian deli. It had and I was eating like the sandwich with like meat and all these things. And I saw this deli, Tutto Italiano is what it was called, in Ciao Italia. In Ciao Italia, there was an episode on season 23, I think, where Marian Esposito was in this deli and making a cooking show, and it was an honor to go there. And I actually met one person from the show, and it was an honor to meet him. If only Marian Esposito herself happened to be there, that would be like, wow, just wow, I was meeting a celebrity. Even to this day, I would be amazed that I would meet her. I mean, if I just had only met her, it would be an overwhelming, just, I would be speechless at that experience. Like, just if I had met Marian Esposito, who I really, really looked up to, who I was really, really into, because I was obsessed with Ciao Italia in 2014 and into 2015, but mainly 2014. It was just like, wow, I'm meeting this person. I'm meeting my idol at the time. But so, yeah, I went to this trip. It was great, and all of that. Michigan, I went to a trip on that. Went to several things. Went to see the dunes. Went to, do all these kind of things in 2015. Before that point, going to see family. Going to see my aunt Amy and Uncle Jerry there. We kind of had a lunch and a celebration. That next day was barbecue and all that. 2016, Kansas City. My family and I went to Kansas City. Missouri, we went to the zoo there. We went to all these kind of things like that there at Kansas City. We went to the World War II Museum, and I remember being so World War I Museum. And I remember it was really, really hot that day, what I remember. And I remember being so consumed with learning. Like being very, very, like wanting to memorize information because I considered remembering information to be learning, but I actually learned to let go and not have to remember every little detail that I learned about. So the whole thing was a learning, thing with me. So I didn't have the proper, outlook on learning at the time. So it was 2016. The North Node was in Virgo. I was very, very much into cooking. The focus was on health, and the focus was on. I was very much into cooking that year. Like all these kind of cooking shows and going outdoors was a very, very big thing that summer. So, yeah. So that was that. 2017, going to Wisconsin Dells in Chicago. The Wisconsin Dells experience was very popular, very good in that experience. we went there. And then there was this wedding that we went to, which is the very, very first wedding that we went to. And what I remember is, what I recall is, we had to wait forever for a room in that Wisconsin Dells hotel. It took forever, and the wedding was at like 5 something or other. And we were rushing. We were getting panicked. We were trying to get a room, and luckily we got it just in time when we were trying to pack. And then I was frantic, and I was stressed, and I was upset that we got a room so late. And there were like these older people that were more experienced at the counter that were occupied, and then these younger people who were flagging us down, trying to get our attention, who were not so experienced, with the ones that we ended up getting acquainted with when we were checking into the hotel and etc. So that was tough, but then that wedding was great. It was an outdoor wedding. I was worried about being outdoors and the bees and the feel of it. And let's see here. So I remember dancing at the wedding. I would be very, very crazy dancing, having fun. I remember really, really enjoying dancing there. And then going to Chicago, we went to several places. I'm just not recalling where we went to in Chicago exactly. But we went to Chicago. We walked around the city, and I remember we went to the like a historic, like an art museum. And that's when I realized that I had a problem with people talking on a foreign language on the phone in America, talking in this language to their relatives. Like I remember being very, very, and I'm quoting a video, pretend mad video that I did about this. And I remember what I said in that video. I remember just hearing this, and I was like, this is America. We speak English here, like all these, foreign accents. I was very, very annoyed at this, I remember. So we went to this museum and did all these things in Chicago. And that was when I was kind of, the unpleasantness showed up. 2018, we visited family. Kind of already went into the downside of this before, but I got sick at the end of this vacation. We visited family. We went to excuse me, a funeral. We went to see a kind of an older aunt, great aunt that I had, who was in a nursing home at the time, who's now kind of passed on. But anyway, and so we visited family. There we had a picnic. Picnic. I feel like this is a very, very mundane detail of my life. Sorry. Well, if what's his name, Bright McCourt, put it in the book and could get a Pulitzer Prize award or whatever, I think I can say it in this video. So, visiting family, and I remember my favorite aunt in the whole wide world. Kind of already named her. Aunt Joan was there. I remember just really, really, my favorite aunt. Talking, we had many, many great conversations about books. She gave me a couple books that I remember that I have on my bookshelf now that I've read. One of them I haven't read, the other didn't finish it, and I'm not going to go back and finish it. But anyway, so it was very, very fun. We talked. It was very, very engaging. There was a lot of food there, and it was a great experience. 2018 was a great year overall, and this vacation, for the most part, was a great experience. 2019, we went to Omaha. We went to the zoo in Omaha, and it was like 2 to 3 days. On the way back, we got Korean food. My family and I got Korean food, and then we, you know, went to this like historical site or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was. But went there, went to the Old Town Market or whatever, and did that. 2021, we went to this cabin in northern Wisconsin, like the northmost part of Wisconsin. And the cabin was not the most well done. It was kind of, old, tattered, wasn't very well maintained. A lot of algae in it. Just very, like, it could be shinier or it could be neater, but it was just very, like just not the best place. We're in a cabin on the lake. I remember this one morning waking up. It was so cold that my family and I had to get all our blankets on and whatever, and do things because it was very, very cold. I was very constipated on the vacation. So cabin on the lake, seeing my Aunt Nan, or excuse me, Aunt Amy, Uncle Jerry on this vacation. Seeing family, having several get-togethers with them, eating food with family, and then we were going on a. Sorry about that. So I'm just trying to get through all of this in one episode. Okay, so falling off the pontoon boat, I remember going. I remember going in this boat. There was a dip in the boat, and I remember being afraid of falling because it wasn't put out. The boat wasn't put out. And then the whole boat trip, I was very, very anxious about having to step over the water again and fear of falling in. So that was a very, very big fear. 2023, Chicago. I went to a wedding. It was like I should mention, another wedding that I went to. 2018, Louisiana. Do I really, really have to go through that? Do I really, really have to go through every little detail of every little vacation doing this thing? We went to 2018. We went to Louisiana. I remember fell in love with the food. I remember it being very, very like I wanted more of the food. I didn't, and it was very, very great. We I remember walking around one day and my throat was hurting and it was sore, and but it was kind of a fun experience doing that. And then we went to a wedding there, which was by an Asian American woman, and and the two things that this wedding that we went to in Louisiana, in this wedding in Chicago, was the music was very, very loud. It hurt my ears. You couldn't enjoy the experience. You couldn't talk. It was uncomfortably loud. It was just very, upsetting, and just way too loud, way too much. Okay. Chicago, the wedding. We went there. We went to the Finger Lakes. The whole trip, I was constipated. I was in discomfort. I had struggled going to the restroom. I described that in another video. 2025, Omaha. We went to Omaha very, very recently. It was a great experience. It wasn't that bad. We went to a restaurant that we went to before. We went to the zoo again. 2025. I'm not going to go through that. And then the last little thing that I just want to talk about real quick, as kind of a side note to this, that I want to slow down and talk about is There's something about going to my grandparents' house when I was little that just, it doesn't bother me now, but there's always conflict when we go there. There's always some kind of conflict when I feel, I need somebody says something, some arguments get started, all these kind of things like that. There's always conflict, battle, tense energy, annoyances, inconveniences, being uppity about things, being, discomfort, small kitchen, whatever it is, all these negative things, all these things that I pick at and become very complaining about or whatever. It's kind of always been like that, for a while, and that's something that I don't really care for about that. So anyway, I thought I might mention that this is long enough. I will, when I get back from where I need to go, film a video, which is about Mercury in Pisces retrograde, in Pisces through all 12 signs. I'll prep for that. I'll film that video. Thank you for tuning in and watching this whole thing of my fears and my vacations. I hope that you found it interesting, displaying my whole life to you. Some of the mundane details of it. I apologize for that. But I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Thank you for tuning in. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to the Real Me podcast.